Hello, my name is Billy Barton, and today I'm going to talk to you about drug testing in the workplace. Kind of an overview. I'm going to talk about how it began, the basics, type of drug testing in the workplace, why do employers drug test, and those who oppose drug testing. How it began? Well, it began with a aircraft carrier from the Navy that resulted in the death of several sailors. Back in 1981, a crash happened, and as they did drug testing, they found more and more drug presence in the overall military. This led to a series of investigations by President Ronald Reagan, and he issued Executive Order 12564 mandating a drug-free federal workplace. 7 years later, after the crash, after extensive studies in 1988, he actually enforced a federal workplace drug testing. And this was mandated for all federal employees, contractors, and non-mandated industries. And the United States eventually, their drug test was the most extensive and medically confidential and well designed in the world, and set the standard for drug testing globally. Drug testing in general, a drug test is a technical analysis of a biological system. For example, urine, hair, blood, breath, sweat, oral, or saliva. And that's used to determine the presence of drugs or the absence of drugs in your system. And this is kind of a rundown of what they're testing for. So alcohol, usually that's only post-accident to see if it's in your system. But they do test for cocaine and marijuana and other paraphernalia in your system. So this slide just shows all the drugs and how long they usually stay in your body once you take them. So alcohol, 1 ounce is 1.5 hours. So if you're drinking 15, 20 ounces, I mean that could last. And then you show up to work and it's probably still in your system and you're hungover, smelling like alcohol. And then kind of run down cocaine, 2 to 10 days in your system. And then you got the marijuana down toward the bottom. Casual use is about 3 to 4 days in the system. But most marijuana uses are more chronic. So that could last several weeks, up to a month or two. Types of drug in the workplace. Pre-employment testing is kind of your standard before you're hired. So it's conducted to prevent hiring individuals who illegally use drugs. And it's a conditional offer of employment that has been made. So you've been offered the job and they're just waiting for your drug test to come back negative. Random testing, as performed unannounced and unpredictable basis on employees, usually by their employee number or social security that's been placed in a pool, and then your selection's made. The selection is usually generated by a computer to ensure random selection. That way nobody's pinpointed or singled out. This typing is no advance notice, and it serves as a deterrent to other employees, so they can't just use drugs and think they're going to get away with it. Post-accident testing. Anytime there's damage to property or injury, you're always going to be tested for drugs or alcohol in your system to determine whether that was a fault or a cause of the incident. If that test is negative, then they look down further and see what else happened. Alright, so employers drug test to discourage employees from using drugs, prevent the hiring of individuals, so that's your pre-employment drug testing. Provide a safe environment for workers, so the risk of injury or all that, they don't want people there using drugs or abusing. Be able to recognize and assist employees who have drug problems. So Bob, who's been at the job for 30 years, recently divorced, now has an alcohol problem. They like to identify those people and assist them in trying to get the help they need, because he is a valuable asset to the company who's going through a tough time. And they also have to follow state and federal laws. If state laws require your company to test, they have to test it, whatever their regulation is, and that same goes with federal. and just kind of piggyback off the rest. So employers drug test because of productivity loss. They're losing money if you're not doing your job right or getting injured at work. They also, want a quality of workplace environment. They want others to feel safe coming to work and working with the people that they're surrounded with. That goes along with workplace safety. Drug users, quick rundown. Companies using or drug users cost companies about $15,000 annually per employee. When you think about that, that's a lot of money, especially when some people don't even make $15,000 a year. They cost the company 300% more in medical costs and benefits. So people are injured, sick, or whatever, they're going to the doctors more. And they're also absent up to 20 times more often than a normal worker. If they do show up, they're about 1/3 less productive than the ones that are there without drugs or alcohol in their system. Other things they've done is admitted to selling drugs to coworkers and admitted stealing from employees, and that's probably to support their drug habit. Alright, this chart's just a survey conducted where the subjects either identify themselves by self-report or show positive on a urinalysis test. So you got the illicit drugs, the marijuana, and some others there. And then some more stats. Approximately 1 in 5 young adults 18 to 25 were illicit drug users in 2015. So these young adults in your workforce are drug users. Illicit drugs are usually the harder drugs. And this is an overall economic cost. So this is your workforce and your non-workforce in the entire United States. So illegal drugs, 181 billion. You skip over alcohol, and then tobacco use to 193 billion. Total altogether for all three, 559 billion a year it costs our government due to drug abuse and addiction. And then you have those who oppose drug testing. Some of the big things are cost. So people are against it because it does cost $8 to $42 a test, and if you have thousands of employees, it could add up very quickly. So if you have 1,000 employees and maybe 10 use drugs, what's the is the cost benefit to drug test? Privacy is another issue. People are at home, they want to do drugs or do whatever, drink, and then if they show up to work and it's not affecting their work, then why do you care about what's going on in their house? So that's where privacy concerns come in. And then debatable accuracy. So less than 1% of tests come back positive when they're really negative. And if that happens, it's an issue because you're negative or you're positive, guilty, and it's an uphill battle. And you can be fired or anything else. I threw this slide in because you do have the people who are, drug users and use it on a regular basis, and they found ways to cheat. Dilution is kind of where you put tons of water in your system or some kind of additive, and you push it out and the drug out of your system and then test negative. Detox drinks do the same thing. Substitution and synthetics. So substitution would be your friend's urine. And then synthetic would be the powdered form that comes from a lab that passes as urine. That's nearly 100% accurate if you use it. And then Midol, women use that or so, and it kind of also is a dilution to help pass a test. And in summary, there's no comprehensive federal law that regulates drug tests in the private sector. The Drug-Free Workplace Act does impose certain employee education requirements on companies that do business with the government. Since there's no federal drug testing, this leaves the field open to state regulation, and many states have enacted provisions opposing drug testing of various kinds. But some limit testing to reasonable suspicion of probable cause versus drug testing on a regular basis. And that could also be an issue because you have the states who are, you can use marijuana and it's legal. But if you're one of those mandated companies that do drug testing, then you have to follow your federal law versus a state law. And I kind of threw this in here. This is before and after drug use. So you see the pictures of before their drug use with their mug shot, and then years later, as you can see, pretty significant. So don't do drugs. Alright, thank you for your time, and you have a good day.